attributing the improving numbers to the fact that people are more observant now of social distancing rules and protocols and behaviors. Diba? It's not even protocol anymore. So people didn't quite know what to make of this news. Ano ba to? Parang should we be cheering this on? Or is this something that could potentially be harmful and could complicate matters for us again?
Although I suppose yung kasi we're talking about public transport here basically
Hmm.
more than anything else sa mga jeep naman kasi you cannot stay a meter apart kasi kung hindi
Hmm.
baka dalawa lang kayong pasero o apat na pasero sa loob ng
Hmm.
jeep so
Hmm.
basically sa jeep parang ganoon na nga parang
Parang hindi
1
rush
foot or
hour.
1.5 feet.
Di ba? Parang babalik ka lang doon sa mga araw na hindi naman rush hour, hindi kayo hindi
Mm.
kita, hindi kayo shoulder to shoulder,
May plastic
but
naman
1 foot. No, 1 foot. So yes, we understand it on that level. On yung mga, lalo na sa mga drivers na umaasa sa this is their livelihood. On the other hand, on the side of the commuters, they're also saying, look, if it's also a matter of basically accommodating more passengers, ba't di na natin dagdagan din yung dami ng mga jeepneys that are allowed to ply their routes? Ba't di natin dagdagan yung mga tren para mas maraming mga tao and ma-accommodate mo? So, again, this is not to say this is a simple matter. We understand it's a complicated thing. We're just saying that a lot of people don't quite know what to make of this development.
Actually, if I remember right, they were having problems getting enough commuters to begin with for the jeepneys.
Mm.
So,
Mm.
I don't know if lessening the distance allowed would improve things in terms of public commuting. Kasi
Oo, di ba?
walang pasahero.
At saka catch-22, marami rin mga tao naman who are now thinking, uy, mas marami na na-accommodate, parang all the more na daw sila. Di ba? So parang hindi mo rin alam kung what to think of it. But I think, again, this just goes to all the same points that we're saying, that every time as the economy reopens and as we need to be moving more and more people, ironically, the dilemma on the public health side lalo lang napapaigting.
Okay. And well, I think Amin's running a little late, so let's bring in our guest our first guest for tonight. Remember yesterday, one of our guests was the mayor of Navota, si Toby Chaco. Tonight, we have another Metro Manila mayor as our guest, si Valenzuela City Mayor Rex Gatchalian joins us now online. Mayor Gatchalian, maraming salamat po for joining us tonight.
Maraming salamat for having me again. Good evening to you and all your televiewers. Thank you.
Good evening po. Sir, so what we've been hearing from your city is that you're looking at pretty good numbers in the past few weeks. I think you've been able to cut down on the number of new cases of COVID-19 by more or less around half in the last few weeks. Is that correct? And how did you do that?
Well, it didn't happen overnight. We've been very consistent. I guess the whole Metro Manila naman has been very consistent, not just Valenzuela. Kami, what we've been doing is simply following what the national government said from day one. Test, trace, isolate. Pero nung March pa lang, we followed the no home quarantine policy ng national government. Remember, Secretary Anyo came up with
that sets you apart.
Yeah, pero that really came from the national government. Kami lang, masunurin kami, put it that way. As early as March, no home quarantine policy na ang Valenzuela City. We really don't allow that. No matter who you are, you may have you may be rich, poor, live in a subdivision, in a depressed area. We bring you to an isolation unit. In fact, right now, we're operating 14 isolation units spread across the city. This ranges from our drug rehab center na brand new to elementary schools, high schools. Tapos recently, DPWH also built yung mga container van isolation units sa Valenzuela. We operate close to 1,200 beds. We've been doing that since March. So it's nothing new to our citizens. So you won't hear any complaint from us kasi sanay kami sa ganun. I guess when you ask me how we did it, it's more of consistency. No home quarantine when it comes to isolation. Set up a very active contact tracing center, which you guys featured a couple of weeks ago in TV5. Yung mega contact tracing center, which is manned by 160 contact tracers, so very aggressive kami dyan. And then tests. We keep on testing. we're now up to 24,000 individual PCR tests and still running. Our target is 10% of the population by the end of the year. So consistency lang in what we've been doing.
Yeah, but Mayor, kaya na sabi nyo, you've been doing it since March, gamay na nyo na to. But a lot of LGUs and a lot of residents, hindi pa sila under this regime before. What can you tell to your fellow LGU leaders? And for that matter, what can you tell residents to prepare for, to anticipate, to make it easier for everyone?
Actually, number one, medyo mahirap when we started in the sense na may mga tao talaga with so much apprehension na ayaw. They will say, no, we don't want to go there. May sarili naman kaming toilet. Pero we have a protocol in the city na pagka medyo maraming apprehension, I personally dial the person. I get my cell phone, get the number, and call the person. In fact, ang dami ko na-save na COVID patient number sa cellphone ko because I realize most of them are just looking for reassurance. Reassurance in the sense na hindi sila dalating sa isang lugar na mapapahamak sila. So we've been very consistent. And number two, steadfast. You have to really hold your ground. No matter if it becomes difficult, you'll hear, sa start talaga, you'll hear a lot of nasty, nasty apprehensions. May mga pilosopo. And then, but you have to hold your ground kasi the moment you provide exemptions, it just breaks the dam. People will say, kung siya pinayagan mo, bakit ako hindi? So right now, I have to admit, the only exception we provided one or two, are for medical reasons. I'll give you an example. Meron kaming stage 4 na patient na ng cancer, bedridden, bed sores. She's in technically pain management, level. All her doctors said moving her will only cause her imminent death more than the COVID killing her. It will be us trying to pull her out of her bed, moving her to an isolation facility. So yun, we just kept her there, but we imposed a home lockdown, meaning may bantay. And we only did that for her case. And another case na may hip displacement naman yung matanda, the person isn't mobile at all. Those are the only two exceptions I can think of. Basta steadfast, consistent, and before you know it, the constituents themselves will appreciate it, and they themselves will look for it. Kasi meron kaming week wherein nung surge right after GCQ na ang daming nagpa-positive. So admittedly, may 1 to 2 hours lag from the estimated pick-up time kasi we would pick them up one by one. So they were calling us. They were saying, uy, wag nyo kami makalimutan ma-pick up kasi nasanay na sila eh. Nasanay na sila in the sense na kailangan ko gawin to for my family, for me, and you know, whether we like it or not, the stigma is in the community eh. Alam na mga tao pagka nandun yung neighbor na may positive. Pero sa amin, the moment kunin na siya, nakakahinga yung community. And then pag binalik siya, everybody knows you're okay na. So wala ka na maririnig na discrimination or anything kasi alam na nila, magaling ka na. You were taken, you were isolated, and then you came back home.
Para Mayor, part of the assurance I imagine is you describing ito si Ami Pamintuan, kasama na rin natin, but and she will have a question for you as well. But Mayor, part of the reassuring, I imagine, is you telling the people what to expect kung sumama sila at magpunta na sila sa isolation facilities. Maybe you could describe it for us as well, assuming that this will be what you have is typical of what the other LGUs will build also. Ano ba itsura ng isolation facilities yan? And beyond sa itsura, ano po ba yung sistema dyan? Talaga bang, should I expect not to be in contact with my family? Gano'ng kabilis ba ang alsabalutan ko? Am I completely isolated? May internet ba dyan? How do you reassure them physically and in terms of the logistics and what to expect kung magpunta doon?
We operated 2 categories of isolation units. We have 2 hotel facilities that we commandeered as early as March. These ones are hotel facilities that we reserve for frontline workers. Kasi we've said nga, if you really value your frontline workers, there must be some type of, how do I put it, some type of accommodation for them. So admittedly, in the long hotel facility, you have your own toilet, you have your air condition, pero even nga the AC nga, the doctors here are frowning on it. They're saying ventilated rooms are better than enclosed rooms. So yung we wish we had more hotels in Valenzuela, but you have to remember we're an industrial city, not a tourist city. So we took the 2 biggest hotel capacity here. So cumulatively, yung dalawang hotel na yun, mga 60 rooms yun. So those are reserved for frontline workers. Very consistent rin kami doon. And then everything else, schools except our flagship isolation facility, which is the brand new drug rehab facility na never na nagamit. It was supposed to open April 1, pero nagamit na namin for COVID. So hindi na siya drug rehab facility. They all look alike. We explained to them na, number one, there's doctors inside. Every facility has a doctor and a nurse. So they're really keeping a close tab sa'yo. Kasi we know that in COVID, sometimes sa start mo, mild symptoms, but sometimes it turns for the worse in the 14 days. So we're ready to, ang ina-assure namin, may doktor dyan. In fact, mas safe ka kasi may doktor kami. In the event that it turns for the worse, we can pull you out, move you to our hospital immediately. Kasi the system, the 14 units are connected with each other. Number two, we put isolation pods inside the classroom. We know it can be a bit uncomfortable in a school kasi school yan most of the time. So remember those parang tents na enclosed na square na actually nakita we use
evacuation.
Yeah. We have those inside every classroom. We bought a lot of those kasi nga we're running thousands already, so we have thousands of those. So inside the classroom there are 4 of those para may privacy ka pa within the classroom. So just in case strangers yung kasama mo sa classroom, may extra privacy. So what we tell them is it's as private as it can get. Number 2, you have 24/7 medical care. And number 3, meron kaming, the toilet, sabi naman namin talaga it's communal. Pero hey, we also tell them and honestly tell them that we're not going to a vacation. This is more of a medical intervention. So please don't expect too much from the toilet facility. It's a common facility. It's like in the dorms, di ba? Pero we provide food. You don't need to worry about that kasi sometimes families are really uprooted, the entire family, so walang magdadala ng pagkain. So we tell them, don't worry about it, we'll bring you food. They also get a sort of a welcome kit that we give out na kompleto na yon. Vitamins inside, alcohol, whatever they'll need, snacks, packs, crackers. And then for kids, we went a bit further. Parang sa airplane, we give them kiddie packs na may mga crayons, coloring book, just so that you can keep a child amused and entertained in 14 days.
Parang Happy Meal.
The facility kasi is a school. Let's admit, it's not as comfortable as your house. And we're honest. Pero what we tell them is the safety of your family kasi may mga doctors. And what we tell them is we will try to make it as comfortable as it can by putting those isolation tents. And inside an isolation tent, we put electric fans each. So, hindi yan mainit. Meron kang solo mong electric fan, solo mong table. So, look, we've been running since March. And admittedly, it hasn't been perfect. Pero overall, it's not as bad as most people think of it. The mere fact that kung masama yung handling, edi dapat ngayon wala nang sumasama sa amin. Pero they really voluntarily join. Mind you, baka iniisip ng mga tao may pulis akong pinapadala pag pinipick up sila. Wala. It's just an ambulance with the medical staff that will pick you up. And they're packed. By the way, we also provide laundry. We've accredited one helpful laundry shop. We pick them up, we give them those yellow bags, and then we pick them up, do the laundry within the stay, and return it to them. So it's sort of a trying to parang mapurol yung edges. We understand the schools have edges, the comfort isn't there, but we're trying to make it as comfortable as possible.
Mayor, good evening po. You mentioned that your city is an industrial city, no? Napakarami ninyong factories dyan, ano? Ano yung protocol niya? Is it a problem area? Paano yun? Ang dami-dami nila doon. Karamihan sa kanila, medyo dikit-dikit yung mga workstations nila dyan. Saka most of them, they live outside the city. Paano yun kapag merong na-infection? Ano yung protocol na gagawin? Ika-quarantine ba sila? Saka saan sila ika-quarantine? Paano yun? Do you allow granular lockdowns?
No, 3 things. The moment nag-GCQ, we painstakingly registered mail and hand-delivered a ordinance that says you are to submit 5 days within that receipt a new management protocol. Meaning, nakalagay doon yung layout mo, you'll literally draw it out. This is my floor plan, my factory floor. Ilan square meters kami. And we give them the formula there. So, when it comes to social distancing, meron yon. They know that. You won't be able to get your business permit running if you didn't submit that plan. Okay? Number 2, we also came up with another ordinance that made it very clear. if it's a workplace infection, it's up to the company to, number one, do the testing of the immediate workers that were affected. But our CESU is coordinating with them closely. Kasi the moment may isang nag-positive doon, we work with the HR directly. HR to CESU yun, para we can contact trace. And then, yung nag-positive na yun goes into our system. Goes into the same isolation units that I was talking about a while ago. Now, what happens to the, so they take care of the testing in the factory, the owners. But the greater community kami na yon. So meaning, let's say you have 10 workers, all the 10 households nila, kami na bahala mag-testing. And if there are people that test positive, we bring them into the same isolation facility I was talking about. Valenzuela is unique in the sense na last time I checked, we still have the most number of factories per square kilometer than any other city. We're like your Motown of the country, no? And we're proud of our industrial roots. In fact, I bet my life on it. You go home, 3 out of 5 products in your household that you see literally are made from Valenzuela. So it's really a problem spot in the sense na workers come in and out. Hindi naman lahat yan dito nakatira. But because of the new management plan that they all submitted.
Yes. Nawala. Sabay nawala. Sabay pa yatang nawala. Na-cut off si Mayor. Na-cut off si Mayor. Ayan na. Okay.
Coming back.
Yeah. Do I remember every factory has a safety officer? They've all been met. Hello?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Go ahead, sir.
And we've trained them with the biosafety standards. When our people go and inspect for fire safety, yung structural, sinasama na namin yung checking if they're compliant or not. Even with their stay-in facilities, we check each and every one.
Do you allow granular lockdowns? Or do you require factories na magpa-stay in? Walang granular lockdown.
We don't encourage kasi isolation, quarantine in their facilities. Number one, so many people will want to quarantine in their house, in their factory, but they don't have the necessary protocols inside. We still try and insist na we draw the same way we treat our communities. All positive Valenzuelanos are drawn out rather than you stay in the community, even if it's a factory. What we tell them is we test, we pull out the positive, they disinfect, then they can operate again. Wala dapat yung positive doon, even if marami sila, dapat nasa amin yon.
No, I mean, do you allow, halimbawa mataas na building siya, tapos may isang floor lang na merong infection, pwede bang yun lang i-lockdown and the rest of the building can continue operating?
We in fact, madam, we don't even want to lock down that one floor.
Yes.
We will pull out every single positive person there is, no matter how many they are, so that nakaka-operate pa rin sila the way they should be. It's a service we provide. The isolation facilities is a service we provide. Mahirap na, I was joking with our people, sabi ko, before I joined public service, I was working for a hotel, for our family hotel. I left that world and joined public service. Now, running the isolation facilities is like running a lodging establishment. Kasi you're looking after their food. We run out of, we don't get a third-party caterer. We operate out of a central kitchen with volunteers. These kitchens we used to operate for our children's, yung daycare and K-12 feeding namin, K-6. So now we retrofitted it to feed our isolation unit. Mahirap, 1,200 beds every single night is a bit difficult, but nairaraos naman.
So, kumusta na po yung economy ng city ngayon? Is it slowly recovering or flat pa rin?
Yeah, madam, this is something that might strike you as surprising. Remember the second quarter, third quarter, the second quarter business permit and real property tax season was moved by the national government nung last summer. June na siya. We were very scared nobody will pay. But surprisingly, year on year, our numbers are still up. We are up by a couple of hundreds of million in our business permits, also for a real property tax. But admittedly, na-insulate ng bigger companies yung mga closure ng MSME. So it's a bit worrisome doon sa MSME. Pero the slack that the MSME closures left, the void, napasukan ng mga big corporations kasi marami kaming packaging companies also. And they were very, very busy during the ECQ. Like I said nga, name me a product it's probably made in Valenzuela or packed here in Valenzuela.
True. Yes.
So
Okay.
basically, ma'am, we're worried about the MSMEs. That's why we're trying to work with the national government in finding them alternative working capital. But the big boys seem to be, kumbaga, they are affected, but they're slowly inching up to their original numbers. Or, as a matter of fact, they were insulated. Medyo matitibay itong big companies. So we're talking about corporations that do
Yes.
canning. And they weren't really shut down during the ECQ because essential business marami sa kanila. Now, for our MSMEs, what we've done, yes, there are provisions in Bayanihan too, but we started working with a lot of bigger financial institutions. Like, for instance, BDO has a new arm for microfinance, yung BDO Network Bank ata tawag nila. So they've been coming to the city, working with our MSMEs. We opened our books to them, of course, with the consent of our MSMEs, and they help do the risk assessment kung sino doon yung papasa sa kanila for fresh capital. Kasi our MSMEs are struggling for capital, and that's why we had to work with these establishments.
Mayor, can you share some insights from that? I mean, both on the micro level, both on the MSCV level, but also on the macroeconomy level. Nabanggit niya, for example, packaging, the very vibrant. Can you get and can you share insights on what that means for the economy? What are the bright spots that you're seeing? What are some potential areas that even MSMEs, whether you're big or small, could be looking at?
Well, number one, for the bigger companies here, like I said, they're not parang they didn't really go in hibernate mode. We're talking about companies that are engaged in food packaging. Ang dami namin nun eh.
Yeah.
One of the core industries in Valenzuela is packaging kasi sa dami naming plastic factories here, di ba? Whether it's PET, PP, polypropylene, polyethylene, PET bottles, it's really made here. So, yung mga yan, we were a bit scared na pagdating nung tax season nung second quarter, walang magbabayad. But lo and behold, they were paying. Of course, they were grumbling in the sense na looking for discounts from the city, which we explained we cannot do because cash trap rin yung city. There's so many unprogrammed COVID expenses that we have to finance. Yes, we do get national subsidy, pero it's better na nakatayo kami sa sarili naming mga paa. And they understood. Now, for the MSMEs, what's funny recently I noticed, they've gone virtual. But you'll be surprised, everybody's selling online, whether through a Facebook account or setting up their own webpage. I'll give you a program that we are working on right now. I initially wanted to curate all of these online MSMEs kasi they've been from traditional, they found a new niche and a new space in the digital world, in the online world. So parang the COVID scenario just hastened the disruption. Parang maybe we were really going there already, pero napabilis lang because of COVID. Yung mga dating allergic to go online just decided to go online kasi that's the only way. They were forced to. And I'm talking about home entrepreneurs selling plants, selling household cleaning chemicals, and mostly food. Ang daming food. And you know, what they're looking for, number one, is awareness. Trying to get them out in the noisy clutter of the internet world. So we were supposed to curate a page purely for them. For parang it's sort of a online marketplace where they can do buying and selling, but administered by the local government. Pero lo and behold, I found out there were already private initiatives like that. So we tapped into the administrators and we asked them. Actually, I just met them 2 days ago again. I asked them, what do you guys need to be able to help our MSMEs who's gone online? Especially the food vendors. Maraming food eh. These are people who used to have sari-sari stores, pumasok sila sa ganitong negosyo. What they're just saying is, Mayor, we need you to help us advertise. So we're signing a memorandum of agreement with them. We'll take care of the boosting of their social media pages. We'll do the banner placements for them. So that's something that I'm seeing that I think is happening everywhere. Ang maganda nito, number one, walang real estate costs kasi it's virtual.
Bahay lang.
Number two, ito, and I'm saying this, we're not regulating them in Valenzuela City. So many people have asked me to come up with an ordinance that will regulate them. Let's say they pay a fee. I just don't believe in that. You know, maybe in the future when they're more established. But now, I don't want to kill something that is just starting off and starting that's something that might be good. And now is not the time to regulate. I understand if the national government, Congress wants to regulate the bigger ones like yung mga Amazon or Shopee or Lazada. But I'm talking about independent small entrepreneurs. I just want to give them the break right now. So that's what we're doing. And I think a lot of national government noise also centers around online selling right now.
Yes.
Mm. Pero Mayor, eventually you will have to regulate them kasi for example you would have health concerns and
Yes.
health is of course one of the primary regulations of local government unit. That's why you have
When
a
I
health
say
department.
regulate, hindi the safety side, but rather the regulatory of coming up with business permits for them.
Yeah.
Remember, these in these establishments,
No
bago to, so
licenses.
walang business, walang license to.
Yeah.
Pero when it comes to safety protocols, we're working on that already, making sure nga na their kitchens are up to date and up to speed with
Oo, kasi puro pagkain eh.
accepted standards. Pero hindi lang yan. Meron yang isang page that we're working on right now. It's called Valenzuela City online. It's a Facebook account that has so many Valenzuela followers, but they're selling non-food items. Like I said, household cleaning chemicals that they are retailing, meaning they're parang resellers. Plants, apparently, they're into that right now kasi maraming naging plantito and
Gardening.
plantita out there. So I learned those two bagong words na naman ang natutunan ko yan from younger people here. And then they're also into services. There seems to be a demand with reliable skills like plumbers, carpenters, people who will do home service for your electronics sa bahay. Kasi they're just, people are
Lalo
scared to
na.
go out. Di ba, if we have stay-at-home provisions, so talaga ngayon naghahanap sila. So we're working on those three things. A common page, online page that the city will help advertise but will let them curate it for food. Number 2, for non-food. And number 3, for services. Yung services is emerging. And maybe this is good for our coming home workers na may skills kasi we're talking about plumbing work at home, electrical work at home. These are manageable skills that TESDA can easily retool our people. It's just a matter of coming up with a reliable directory that you will be comfortable into going in. Para alam mo lahat ng nandun has been vetted out by the city already at hindi sila yung papapasukin mo sa bahay mo and then may mangyayari.
Okay,
Okay. Well, maraming salamat po, Valenzuela Mayor Rex Gatchalian. Sir, thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you, and it's always a pleasure. Stay safe. Maraming salamat. Magandang gabi sa inyo.
Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, we'll just pause for a break, so please stay with us.
Dr. Leachon, kasi lang po na mic saglit.
Hello.
Ayan po, okay po. Sige po,
Okay.
start na po tayo in a few seconds.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome back to the Chiefs. We're now in the final stage of our conversation. And now joining us is Dr. Tony Leachon, public health advocate and former special advisor to the National Task Force on COVID-19. Good evening, Dr. Leachon. Welcome back to the Chiefs.
Good evening, Ami.
Hi, sir.
Yes.
Good to see you
Good
again.
evening,
Hi.
Doc.
Hi,
Yes.
good evening.
Doc, itutuloy ko lang yung usapan namin about the home quarantine. Medyo nagkakaanuhan yata yung DOH, saka hindi nagkakasundo yung Department of Health,
DILG.
DILG and the National COVID Task Force. Kanina inulit na naman ng DOH na ayaw nila. Ayaw nila ng total ban on home quarantine. What do you think of that?
Well, yung ganito kasi, i-apply din natin at I think sa susunod nating topic which is physical distancing.
Yes.
We always base policy kasi on three things eh. I've been a public health advocate for almost 10 years. Ang una niyan science. So what is the science behind yung isolation and quarantine facilities? Pag pinagbasihan mo science, you want of course to reduce the viral transmission and of course that's the basic assumption na kung bakit hinihiwalay yan. So nagkataon lang ang problema nito kokonti ang space natin or espasyo natin kaya hindi magawa. So kung ang pag-uusapan natin ay what is right and what is ideal based on standard practice, talagang dapat i-isolate and i-quarantine mo sila kasi ang ang bansa natin hindi kasi kontrolado. May mahirap tayo, may mayaman tayo, may middle class tayo. So, ang problema natin, ano ba yung tamang dapat gawin? So then doon natin i-apply yung bagay na yun na ma-address yung barrier to that particular problem. Kasi or else ang cases natin magkakaproblema. Ang second reason ay universality. Yeah, sige. Okay.
Yes, sir. Sir, so bali sir, theoretically sir, tama naman po dapat theoretically home quarantine would be ideal. Pero knowing what we know, of course you knowing what you know, and us being where we are in the Philippines, what do you think is the best solution for us being what we are? Alam mo yun, for knowing our capacity, knowing our resources, is this a good solution or not?
Well, ang sa akin kasi, ang pwede nating gawin is to use the schools na hindi natin ginagamit kasi ang isolation facilities hindi naman kaagad sila pwedeng gawin kaagad eh. So there are solutions to that, no? And I think yan ang ginagawa sa Nabotas kaya una sila nakapag almost flatten yung curve nila. Ang ibig ko sabihin, they find solutions to problems na pwede nating gawin. And then ini-enforce talaga nila. May DOH silang kasama, may police sila. Ito yung legal. Narinig ko kasing interview kanina ni Toby and then nag-uusap din kami. Ini-enforce talaga niya what is tama. Kaya kailangan gawin yun. Kaya may solution ka dun eh. May solution ka dun. Kasi pag hinayaan natin yan, hindi bababa ang cases natin sa National Capital Region. Kasi ito yung epicenter ng problema natin. Tapos ito din ang pinaka-densely populated sa bansa natin. So we have to make solutions for that. Sa akin, ang opinion ko, ganun. Hahanap ako ng solution right now para maihiwalay sila.
Okay, now, Doc, total, nabanggit nyo na kanina. Next topic, social distancing. Kumalat to sa social media, yung recommendation. In fact, it seems like a program already, a schedule. Sinasabi nila sa public transport, from 1 meter, ilang linggo lang, magiging half
0.75.
meter, and then magiging 0.3, basically 1 foot. And we can understand this. We're trying to understand this from the perspective of the economy, more people going, more public transport, jeepney drivers, operators, bus drivers, getting to take more passengers and so on. But from a public health perspective, ano pong naiisip nyo? May pangamba ba kayo? Does it make sense?
Well, yung una pa rin yung viral transmission eh. Natutuwa yung virus sa ganyang moves ng IATF eh. Kasi ang una niyan science. So I went to the literature. Wala nagsasabi na less than 1 meter is good. In fact, ang WHO 1 meter ang pinaka-minimum nila. Pero pagka ibang countries, mas mahigpit pa nga eh. Spain, Canada. Ang UK, pinipilit nila na from 2 meters to 1 meter. So, kung meron tayong law na 1 meter, kailangan sundin natin yan. Pangalawa, it's counterintuitive. Kaya nga tayo nag-lockdown dati kasi we discourage nga yung lalapit ng tao eh. Number 2, meron tayo ring guideline na pagka 10 tao, bawal. And then yung number 3, binaban nga natin isolation and quarantine facilities, and here we are encouraging people na maglapit-lapit. So again, ang second principle is universality of application. If there are guidelines na nag-o-oppose ka, magkakaroon ka ng problema dyan. And number 3 is doability. How do you implement, let's say, 0.75, 0.5, and 0.3? So magdadala ba ako ng tape
Ruler.
o ruler? So
Metric
hindi, tatlo kasi yan eh. Lagi pag ako gumagawa ng policy, nire-research ko muna kasi magsasalita ka eh. So science wala eh. Walang mag-a-apply na less than 1 eh. WHO na ako pumunta. Then I went around the world eh. And even I went to the 1918 pandemic eh. Ang Philadelphia ay nakikinig. St. Louis yung nag-apply ng ban to gathering. Bumaba ang curve nila. So people who will ignore history will tend to repeat it. So ako, ang personal opinion ko dyan, science hindi siya pasado, universality of application, conflicting siya with other guidelines. Number 3, hindi siya doability. It will fail. And then, ngayon pa lang ang reproductive number according to the UP Octa ay bumababa ng 0.9. And suddenly, here we are encouraging to increase our reproductive number. Counterintuitive siya to science. Hindi siya tama. Though I know we need to support the economy, to support the workers, support public transport, but that's not the way to do it. Maraming way on to challenge that eh. So ako, opinion ko diyan, magfe-fail yan. The economy will never recover as long as the viral transmission is not controlled. And there are other measures in other countries na ginagawa to address this.
Dok, kung arm's length, hindi ba pwede yan? Mga 2 feet, mga 2.5 feet yan. Di ba pwede rin yan?
Well, ang problema mo kasi dyan, katulad nga sa hospital, pumasok lang ako sa hospital, meron kang social distancing cues eh. Kaya nga nilagay kasi siya eh, para hindi ka maglapit-lapit eh. So, pagka ginawa natin arbitrary yan, suddenly, kunyari, mag-stop lang ang behikulo. Siyempre, maglilin ka or maglilin ka or magpo-forward ka.
Yeah.
So, ang tendency mo ngayon, hindi mo alam kung pwede kang mahawa eh. Kahit ka naka-mask nga eh, kahit ka pa rin may face shield eh. Ang fundamental issue is basically social distancing. Yun ang unang ginawa eh. Di ba hindi pa dati accepted ng WHO doon ang mask? Ang una muna nilang inapproban is social distancing. Yan ang first fundamental. Communicable disease ito eh. Pag communicable disease, dapat yan layo ka and then protect. So, based on science, based on public health perspective, it's not a sound idea.
Doc, is there also a possibility na it might alter the mindset of people? Kasi isipin nila, pwede na ako umupo dito ng medyo malapit sa kasama ko. Siguro sa supermarket, pwede na rin akong tumayo ng mas malapit. Di ba, wherever you go, isipin mo, pwede na pala yung ganun kalapit eh. Is there that possibility na it will affect everything?
Yes, it will.
Physical distance.
Of course, kasi kung inaalaw mo yung ganyang klaseng less than 1 meter, then it will discourage yung social distancing measures mo na pinopropagate mo. So we will perpetuate an error. Kasi we allow that na gawin eh, even in public transport eh. Yun nga ang fundamental concept natin is dapat wala maglalapit-lapit. And suddenly, here we are encouraging it. So parang, it's not sound. Ako nga lang, pagka merong pasyente, pumasok lang ako sa hospital nung nakita ko ang setup ng clinic waiting time at saka yung space in the clinic, every other chair. May barriers ka pang ginagawa, may acrylic ka, may face shield ka. Kasi ayaw mo mahawa eh. Pangalawa, paano yan? Close space. dapat al fresco yan. Kaya nga dapat meron kang natural air para pumapasok doon eh. Ito, maglalapit-lapit pa kayo tapos closed door ka in the public transport. Magkakaproblema tayo diyan. Again, counterintuitive siya. Sorry for the term counterintuitive. Kasi binaban nga sa ang pagpananatili ng mga positibo doon sa bahay ng DILG. And here we are, ang DOTR, negating another concept na ginagawa ng isang sangay ng gobyerno. And this is under the umbrella of the IATF.
Yeah.
I think dapat ang
Doc, Doc, I've always wondered about the social distancing rule, or actually the lack of it, on airplanes. Walang social distancing at all on airplanes because of the presumption na the HEPA filter in the airplane works. But that's a filter eh. Before contaminated air gets the filter, it could go to your fellow passenger first. I don't know how it works.
That's correct. Kaya tayo kaya ang daming problema sa migrant workers eh. Nakita natin yan sa Singapore eh. When Singapore allowed migrant workers na dun sa kanilang borders, tingnan mo nangyari sa Singapore. Galing sa eroplano yun eh. Wala namang ibang pinanggalingan yun kundi sa eroplano. So pagbaba nila ngayon, nagkaroon na ngayon ng contamination buong Singapore. And ang tagal nila bago nila na-flatten yung curve, 3 months. And that was a painful exercise by opening the borders to migrant workers. Ito yung problema natin ngayon eh. Even the problem in the Western Visayas right now, yung Bacolod, it is traced to the locally stranded individuals and ROF. So again, ano naman ang bihikulo nila para makarating doon? Eroplano. So yun ang point na gusto kong sabihin eh. Kasi maaring negative sila pag alis ng Maynila. Pero pagdating doon pala mag-uumpisa na minahawa sila, then the incubation period, lalarga after 1 week. Doon ang problema natin eh.
Doc, sorry Doc, klaruhin ko lang kasi it was just an idea for me kanina eh. Am I getting it correctly na you also disagree that there is no social distancing rule in airplanes, that there should be, in other words?
Yes, it should. Again, I will apply again the second concept, universality of application. Kasi doon ako sa hospital ko, every other chair ang pasyente eh. So if it is applicable in the hospital, it should be applicable elsewhere. So ganun din sa bus yun. Kasi kung merong pagtatalo ngayon doon sa konsepto, hindi talaga makokontrol ang virus natin. Magdadala pa tayo niyan sa iba't ibang lugar because of the lack of universality of application.
Teka muna, linawin ko lang. Medyo narito ako doon, Bok. I mean, that's news to me. Ganun ba yun? Wala bang social distancing? I've seen pictures and press releases from some airlines na walang seats, walang passengers sa gitna ng mga in the middle aisle and so on.
Kulang kasing pasahero, pero what we've been hearing from our reporters is that wala talagang...
Robbie, sa international, pagka nag-picture, every other chair. Tayo lang dito. Tayo hindi. Nakikita ko yung mga selfie ng mga pasyente na mga pasahero natin pumupunta sa final destination na locally. Tabi-tabi sila, Robbie.
Pero hindi ba magkakamag-anak lang yun na pinapayagan? If you're not part of the same group, hindi ba you are required to distance all around there? Di ba ganun yun?
Dapat ganun. Yun na nga ang pinagtataka ko eh. Nakikita natin itong mga ganitong klaseng guidelines. And then, i-apply natin ngayon sa public transport natin. Aeroplano pa yun okay lang yung aeroplano kasi siguro malinis sila or what. But ito, when you apply this 0.75, 0.5, and 0.3, that's basically magkakadikit ka na kung 0.3 ka dito eh. Di ba?
Doc, you mentioned also an alfresco environment. Would you recommend na yung mga air-conditioned public transport wag na munang mag-air conditioning? Halimbawa, kasi babalik na yata lahat Halimbawa, yung UV Express, di ba? Hindi ba nakakatakot yun?
Halimbawa, aeroplano.
Dikit, hindi.
Hindi, soprano. But for practicality,
di ba buses? Yung mga yung modern jeepneys, marami namang modern jeepneys na walang aircon Saka nga yung UV Express, saka yung taxi, di ba?
Binasa ko yung
munang mag-aircon.
I agree with you. Binasa ko yung Harvard Health, yung latest updated August 28. Yung air conditioning can actually cause problems kasi close yan Kaya they encourage nga yung yung natural air Kasi mas napapaspas yung mikrobyo na lalayo And that's actually the latest na nakikita natin sa literature. Kaya updated 'yun, eh. Sinusundan ko lagi yung mga academic institution kasi hindi yan political organization, academic yan, eh. Maari pa WHO para sabihin mo 'no, pero these are Harvard. Tinitingnan ko talaga yung template. Eh, nakita ko yan last time. Kaya kanina sa clinic, binuksan ko, nasa 10th floor ako, binuksan ko yung ano, mas maganda yung hangin kaysa sa air condition.
Nakakahinga, di ba?
Mas nakakahinga kaya puwede natin sa bus na open air at saka sa jeepney, mas okey sila na 'pag gano'n. Kaysa ngayon naka-air condition ka, lalo na 'di ba may nagsasabi na airborne siya.
Hmm.
Talaga naman na napatunayan na rin natin 'yan na may airborne transmission ka. Eh, ngayon kung lapit-lapit lalo kayo sa bus na hindi natin makokontrol, magkakaproblema tayo diyan. You have a point there. I would probably recommend that na dati naman nung araw wala namang aircon, eh. Naalala ko nung nag-aaral ako ng medisina, galing ako Mindoro, pagsakay ko ng BLTB, paspas ang hangin, nakakarating ka rin naman sa Maynila, 'di ba?
Gano'n ba yun? Ako ang inaabot kasi mula nag-bus ako, naka-aircon na lahat, eh.
Naabutan mo kasi, Robby. Lagi ka nilang bus, eh. Pero ako naabutan ko talaga yung
Si Ami kasi inabot ni Ami, eroplano, wala pang aircon, eh.
Loko lang. Inabot ko yan. Inabot ko yan ng bus na walang aircon. Pero naka-shorts pa ako noon hanggang dito lahat. Pero zoom out tayo ng konti. Zoom out tayo. I just want to ask about the numbers, what you might have access to or what you're looking at in terms of the numbers. And ano na ba, factor, whatever you're looking at, whatever trends you're seeing, whether it's positive or encouraging or discouraging, factored in na ba ang impact ng GCQ sa mga numbers na nakikita natin?
I think so. Hindi, actually, effect yan ng MECQ. Tapos nag-roll over into the current system, plus the implementation of the IAT of certain guidelines. Kaya lang, lately, ngayon, today, 4,040K. First time in September na nag-4,000 ka, highest since August 30. And then 1,813 ka sa National Capital Region. And then ang problema ko, kaya nadadilute yung improvement in the National Capital Region with a reproductive number of less than 1, which is 0.9, because of the LSI in the Western Visayas, eh. Again, ito yung problema with an archipelago setup na control mo NCR before, lumipat sa Cebu, lumipat uli sa NCR, na-control mo NCR, lumipat ka ngayon sa Iloilo, sa Bacolod, sa Leyte. And this is the problem that we are facing. Na nag-i-improve, eh. Kaya lang, again, another guideline just to increase natin yung economic support natin. This guideline may actually be derail yung ating pagbaba ng pag-flatten ng curve natin. Sinabi na ng UP Octa Group, na may silver linings na, eh. Ako naniniwala din. Kaya lang, pag ginawa natin itong latest guideline ng DOTR, baka mag-increase uli yung cases natin. We're not yet out of the woods at this point in time. We're seeing flattening, but definitely we need sustainability, mga 2 buwan.
By sustainability, you think we can sustain? Kung hindi yan ano pang problema apart from this plan nga to ease the distancing rules? Kasi tinatanong namin yan, sustainable ba tong flattening? Ano pa yung mga problem areas na nakikita nyo sa ngayon while we are opening up the economy?
Well, nasagot na kasi yan ng DILG, yung mga densely populated areas, tinangay nila sa mga isolation facilities, Ang problema lang ngayon,
activities, may mga problema ba? May mga problem areas ba doon? Like gyms, problema ba yon?
ang problem areas ay workplace. O-open lang ng gym para makita natin yung impact, Ang pangalawang problema based on the NTF yung household, which I believe kasi inalaw natin yung 20, 30, 40s na pumasok, basically on the assumption that they are immunocompetent. Problema, dinadala nila sa bahay yung infection na nahahawa ng mga magulang nila. And this is actually the reason for the DILG na i-isolate talaga yon kasi magpa-positive yan lalo na sa bahay. So ang problem areas, if I'm going to summarize that, workplace and then household. And then Ang pangatlo will be LSI and ROF to the other areas of the country, considering na tayo archipelago.
Hmm. Sa sustainability yon.
Sa sustainability ng flattening the curve natin. I think yung social distancing behavior ng Pilipino, I think sumusunod na yung mga tao eh. I can see that eh. Nag-improve eh through public health education, and nung nag-increase din ng protective gear from a face mask and a face shield, I think nag-improve doon and that contributed to the flattening of the curve eh. Sa aking palagay sa aking assumption.
Yung opening ng schools, you don't see any problem. Kasi sabi ng ibang teacher, nag-aalala sila, they have to meet daw regularly with parents, kahit yung mga estudyante nasa bahay lang. Pero meron pa rin silang interaction with parents. That's not a problem area for you.
That's a problem area. Kasi nakita natin yan sa Korea and Singapore. Once na nag-open sila, nagkakaroon ng transmission. Nakita na natin yan in the best practices in Asia. Asia muna tayo, taga-Asia tayo. Nakita natin yan sa Singapore, nakita natin yan sa Korea na nag-open sila sa school. Pwede mangyari din sa atin yan. Na sa ngayon, na nakikita ko, dapat isa sa bantayan yan, problem areas. Nandun din sa WHO criteria, that is number 4. Number 4 siya dun sa criteria for lifting restriction. Ang number 4 preventive measures in the workplace and school. Kaya memoryado ko yan eh. Kaya alam ko yan pag nagbukas yan, that will be a problem area as well.
But as of now, seeing the situation now, you think kaya na nating masustain yung flattening all the way to Christmas? Yan yung mga inaano ngayon, bear month na tayo, or in the middle of the bear month, the first bear month, iniisip ng mga tao, baka pwede na tayo mag-Merry Christmas kahit papano.
Alam mo ako, optimistic vigilance ako lagi eh. I think with ang last nito is a public health education campaign eh. The private sector should step up right now and help the government right now. Hirap eh. And while we know that lalabas yung bakuna in December, ito yung tinatawag nating bridging concept eh. If we can actually do this September hanggang December until lumabas yung bakuna, I think we'll be there. Ang kailangan na natin ngayon private sector help eh. Tuloy gumagawa ngayon ng gobyerno ng mga bagay na dapat magabayan din ng health experts natin eh. And I hope itong public transport na to mabago pa to pag in-implement on Monday. Sana wag pong ituloy. Nangangamba ako baka mag-increase uli yung transmission rate natin.
Anong mga positive na nakikita nyo ngayon? Any positive development sa ngayon?
Well, bumaba yung active cases natin. Dati nag-a-average sa 4,000 to 5,000. Ngayon 3,000 na 2,500 to 3,000. Bumaba din yung critical utilization rate ng hospital, dati above 70%. Bumababa ng mga 50% right now. Ang deaths din natin hindi ganun kadami compared before. Tapos ngayon, naka-atrakan na yung mga SARS eh. May contact tracing SAR na, aktibo. Ang testing natin umaabot na sa 30,000 to 40. Meron na rin tayong one command center na ni Undersecretary Vega. Andyan na rin si Secretary Villar. The confluence of events plus the learning curve natin plus the behavior of the Filipinos right now changing, naka-contribute ito sa ngayon sa flatten ng curve natin. I hope we can sustain that until the coming of the vaccine sometime in December or first quarter next year.
Yeah.
But Doc, part naman ng caveat dyan is yung we're also observing some reports from other countries, including some Scandinavian countries, some European countries, Australia, and so on, some cities, na nagsistricto ulit because they're also seeing some signs na, hindi naman kasing sama ng dati. But what are you observing and what are these developments in other countries or other cities telling us by way of lessons learned or potentially new trends that they might be guarding against?
Well, ang nakikita ko is the changing of the social behavior eh. When they loosen up on restrictions, doon nagkakaroon ng viral transmission eh. We see that also in Japan. 'Di ba? Akala natin okay na sila and then suddenly tumaas ulit sila. Nakita natin sa Korea, nakita natin sa Vietnam, zero nga ang Vietnam eh.
Mm.
Eh nung nag-open sila ng borderland, biglang nagkaroon namantsahan yung kanilang datos. So we're seeing it in the best countries eh. So what I'm trying, even in Germany, in fact ngayon sila na bumabawi uli. So nakikita natin na pagka nagbago ang social behavior ng tao, bumabalik yung virus. Tuwan-tuwa ang virus pag nagbabago ka ng behavior eh. And this is one important factor na dapat yung public health education, lalong dapat nating ma-strengthen ngayon.
Okay. Dr. Tony Leachon, former Special Advisor sa National Task Force on COVID-19. Doc, always a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
Salamat po.
Thank you, Doc.
Salamat, Doc.
Okay.
Oh, nagulat din ako sa aeroplano eh kasi parating sa staff reporters natin covering the airport na walang rule on social distancing sa airplane because there's the HEPA filter on the airplane. That's a specialized filter now that filters the air. Pero yun nga, before it gets to the
I wasn't
filter,
aware of that. But it's a matter of policy. I mean, the policy literally is we will allow this.
Yep.
Sa local flights lang yata yan.
Local flights. Oh, local flights.
Even
Pero,
then,
but the fact is nga na kung katabi mo umubo, bago dumating sa filter yung mikrobyo, dadaan mo na sa'yo.
I guess ang point mo doon is, other than the technology, other than the HEPA filter, when you look at the protocols and everything that we're being told about our behavior, talagang ibang-iba from what I'm hearing. I mean, you're right. That's fascinating at the same time troubling, because you take a flight. What's the shortest flight you can take? Maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes. Sinasabihan nga tayo. Sinasabihan nga tayo 15 minutes mag-red flag ka na.
Oo. Eh, lalo nang mawawala ng incentive na itigil yan kapag tinuloy yung sa Monday na yung i-issue distancing eh. Kaya ewan ko kung matutuloy ang Monday kung walang magpipigil yan.
Magdala kayo ng tape measure. 3/4 of a meter, tapos half meter. That's 1.5 feet. Tapos 0.3 meter is 1 foot.
Yeah.
Baka maano pa rin over the weekend. Okay. Sige.
Okay, happy weekend to everybody.
Happy weekend.
Happy weekend.
See you on Monday.
Stay safe.
Yes.
Okay, and that's it for this weekend edition of the Chiefs. We hope what was discussed here will keep the conversation going. I'm Adling Gaupa News.
I'm Ami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star.
I'm Robbie Alampay, and we are One News.